Hello and many thanks for joining us. You're watching Addis News Hour from the Ethiopian Broadcasting Corporation. With the news, I'm Tabitha John. Do stay with us. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed envisions the Ethiopian flag waving high by the post by the breaths of brave Ethiopian soldiers. The Premier appreciates the bravery of the current generation in its fight against enemies of the country's dignity and sovereignty. Abiy mentions a journalist and writer, Major Haragewein Bekele, who published a book entitled I Am Child of a Soldier, which depicts the unique life of a soldier that demands huge sacrifice. And finally, the Premier has called on all Ethiopians to learn from the life of an Ethiopian soldier whose life is destined to be sacrificed for Ethiopia. Thousands of Ethiopians in the diaspora expressed delight over the second filling of the Grand Renaissance Dam at a rally held in Washington, D.C. The demonstrators also vowed to continue supporting the National Defense Force in its fight against TPLF rebels. Demis Mekrau tells you more.
Thousands of Ethiopians and Ethiopian origins gathered in Washington, D.C. on Sunday to celebrate the second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Those joining the rally also made a show supporting for the Ethiopian military while denouncing rebels in the country's Tigray region. The demonstration, organized by Association for Peace and Unity in Ethiopia, displayed several banners that show allegiance to the Ethiopian people and government in finalizing the second filling of a dam. Demonstrators vowed to continue their contribution till the dam reaches completion.
Abba is our shared river, and the Grand Dam is source of our future. We as a member of the Diaspora community have been contributing to the dam over the last many years, and will keep on that till the dam reaches completion. We are happy to hear the second filling of the dam. We know it becomes a reality after going through a number of challenges. We are so pleased to continue our support to the dam, and Ethiopia will prevail sooner than later.
Abba
is mine, and the dam is mine too. We feel it now, and we will feel it in the future. I think all Ethiopians are in a new wave of solidarity to push the dam into the final point.
Our
dam has shown real progress. We all must support it with finance. We need to support our dam now to reap its fruits soon.
Permanent representative of Ethiopia to the UN Security Council, Ambassador Taye Asqeselase, commends the diaspora community's support for the GERD and called on to sustain it in the future. Ethiopian ambassador to the US, Fitsum Arega, for his part, called on demonstrators to defend TPLF's blackmail propaganda in the international community by portraying the actual situation in the country.
I want to urge you to defend the improper pressure of international institutions and other entities who present fake reports on Ethiopia's current situation, either in intentional purpose or out of misinformation. We need to also support our defense force, which sacrifices its life for Ethiopia's sovereignty.
The demonstrators who gathered in Washington, D.C. have been very vocal in denouncing the Tigray People Liberation Front, TPLF, which was designated by the House of People of Representatives as a terrorist organization. And they vowed to support all efforts in fighting the TPLF fighters with all their capacity.
Ethiopians in various towns have rallied in support of the National Defense Force and expressed their happiness over the successful completion of GERD's second phase reservoir filling. They also pledged to continue to contribute their role to back the National Defense Force, which is now playing sacrifices in safeguarding the sovereignty of the nation. Alula Teklamariam has more.
Thousands of residents in several cities and towns have taken to streets where they reaffirmed unreserved support to the National Defense Forces and denounced the TPLF clique. The people in various spots have hosted huge gatherings who carried placards honoring gallantry of the Ethiopian National Defense Force, denouncing atrocities committed by the TPLF group, and calling the international community to hand off Ethiopia. Demonstrators urged countries and international organizations to stop meddling into Ethiopia's internal affairs and condemn bellicose and use of child soldiers by the terrorist organization.
As part of the relentless efforts that all Ethiopians are undertaking to show solidarity with the National Defense Force, we, the government and people of the Gambella regional state, want to assure that we will do our level best. We will fight to eliminate the TPLF clique once and for all. Our regional police force is in the war front fighting alongside the ENDF. We should not give more time to the TPLF clique from now onwards. It is not time to negotiate with this group. We should not compromise our sovereignty for any reason. That's why we are ready to join the National Army and fight the TPLF terrorist group. There might be differences among us, but we need to come together and fight for our motherland, putting aside our differences. It is time for every Ethiopian to join the war to maintain the country's sovereignty.
They vowed to pay any sacrifices to maintain territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ethiopia by drawing inspiration from forefathers and foremothers who bravely fought against invaders, registered inspiring victories.
I have come here to voluntarily join the National Army and defend my country. I'm lucky to take part and use this opportunity. Our forefathers handed over our country this way. We have a heroic army and we need to strengthen it in all aspects. An enemy has never ruled us before. We will fight the enemy alongside our national army and the special force. They are just killing children and elders, so there is no way to tolerate them.
Participants of the rallies also celebrated the second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, pledging continued support till successful completion of the project. The demonstrators denounced TPLF and called on the international community to denounce the atrocities the faction is committing against civilians.
Welcome back. Economists say the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam would be exemplary in creating economic stimulus for the rest of Africa. Building such huge projects by own financing helps the country avert undesirable challenges from external forces. Albeit of pressure from Egypt and Sudan, Ethiopia is pushing ahead with the construction of the dam. Jerusalem Betzaha reports.
Despite continued pressure from Egypt and Sudan, Ethiopia is pushing ahead the construction of the 5 billion Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. Talking to ETV, the scholar stated that the project will bring considerable economic and environmental importance.
If we use the dam for its multi-purpose, beneficiary activities, definitely will be somewhere in a different place in 10 years' time.
The 6,000 megawatts or whatever closer to it that we get will be internally used to drive the agricultural and industrial development in Ethiopia. It will be very important to have the potential for providing electricity for agro-industrial development, for urban development, and also for services development within the towns and villages. Definitely, this dam is going to have about 70 to 80 billion cubic meters of water. Therefore, there is a fisheries potential to develop fisheries in this area. There is a potential also for tourism Benishangul itself is a tourist attraction when the Nile flows out of Ethiopia. It's just a magnificent place to go in terms of ecotourism.
Konstantinos stressed it needs more effort to develop Abay River Basin development in order to usher more benefit from the vast resource.
When we say the development of the Abay Basin, there have been several development projects by the Ethiopian government in terms of soil and water conservation, in terms of enhancing the yield of the basin itself. So Abay becomes a very important part and parcel of Ethiopia's development initiatives. We have more than 74 million hectares of arable land. And according to the Ministry of Agriculture, we don't even use 15% of that. Our river basins, all of them take out about 122 billion cubic meters of water every year outside the country. But we've not been able to harness this capacity between land and water and the huge young population we have in this country.
The scholars added external pressures on Ethiopia will continue, but Ethiopians will be exemplary in fighting for their economic independence.
You have to know, if we get the Great Renaissance Dam completed, we will make a difference within and around. But the forces outside never stop, believe it or not, to make us fail. Okay? Initially, they want us not to start. Once we started, they want to create different problems that we have seen. They will fight us, okay? Because once Ethiopia get a strong hold, we do not want to fight people, but it will be an exemplarily black nation, demonstrating not only on the freedom of humanity, but on the economic freedom of the black people in the world.
This has shown us that Ethiopians ourselves can engage in building such a huge project with our local finance. The fact that Ethiopians can build this dam by their own will be one of the greatest economic stimulus for the rest of Africans to be able to do things on their own.
This month, July, Ethiopia has completed the filling of GERD for a second year.
The second filling of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam was a linchpin to Ethiopians, as it was a clear showcase of their determination to complete a national development and shows that the water level was not impacted by the dam. Professor of Conflicts Anne Fitzgerald made this remark in an exclusive interview with ETV. She also says the Sudanese people are fully aware of the multifaceted benefits of the Ethiopian dam and therefore should not be deprived of this by Egypt. Shifara Ulako reports.
Anne Fitzgerald is the director of the Boldili School of International Affairs and a professor in Wilfrid Laurier University's Political Science Department. She is widely reputed for publishing articles on issues concerning conflicts, security, and sector governance. She has been working with water economists and the hydrologists and has good data on the GERD issues. She says the second filling of the GERD was a landmark in marking Ethiopian unification behind common development goals in the face of diversified challenges.
This second filling is a show of determination on Ethiopia's part, determination to complete a national development project, which the people of Ethiopia have supported emotionally and physically and also by committing their own resources to it. And the outcome of this second filling has also acknowledged that water levels have not been impacted. And I believe that this achievement and the hope that it generates creates even more momentum behind the unification of the country.
The professor has also urged the African Union to clearly communicate to the world its authority to solve continental issues.
It's reminded us that evidence-based facts are very important in the case of the GERD. And also thinking, again, in terms of the long-term collective interests of the region and the continent. And that takes me back to the role of the African Union and the need to exert real leadership here. I think passing back and forth to the UN Security Council is not optimal when the AU has enabling space to really exert that leadership. Lastly, I would say the fact that Egypt sees the Arab League as their go-to regional organization and not the African Union is an issue here. And this is where the AU must step up to the plate, remind the world that it's the Continental Authority on Africa and support its member states.
She also says the Sudanese people are fully aware of the multifaceted benefits of Ethiopian Dam and therefore should not be deprived of this by Egypt.
Sudan's a country that's had a very decent relationship with Ethiopia in the past, whose parliament gave Prime Minister Abiy a standing ovation for brokering a peaceful political transitional governance arrangement following the fall of the al-Bashir government. And which stands to benefit hugely from the GERD, not only in having more of the share that it is rightfully deserved in the past, a third of which it's used only, to Egypt using the other 2/3 of its share, but also by benefiting by not having so much sediment in the water that flows. The water economists here and the hydrologists always talk about the Blue Nile being the Brown Nile, because of the amount of sediment, and the dam will stop that sediment from flowing. The dam will also provide storage for that 12% of the water from the Nile that in the past has been lost to evaporation. Sudan will benefit for the purposes of its agricultural productivity. And food security for the Sudanese people is very important at the moment. This was one of the reasons why people in Sudan lay themselves in front of the Ministry of Defense and begged the Sudanese armed forces to overthrow the government.
Some reports are showing that Egypt is working to counter would-be power clients of Ethiopia in the region.
ቡና ቱሪዝም ላይ ያው ጌዶ ህይወቱ ቡና እንሰቱ ባቦ የማይነቀሉ የማይታዩ ናቸውና ቡና ላይ እጅግ በጣም የዞኑ ሀብት ነውና የዞኑ ህዝብ አጠቃላይ የኑሮ መሰረቱ የኢኮኖሚ መሰረቱ ቡና ነው።
የጌዶ ብሔር ለረጅም ዓመታት የጠመደ እርሻውን ላለፉት ረጅም ዓመታት ሲጠብቅ ቆይቷል። በጌዶ ብሔር ተፈጥሮ ማለት አንዱ የህይወቱ አካል ነው። ማንኛውም ሰው ከመሬት ተነስቶ ዛፍ መቁረጥ አይችልም። ኢቭን ኢፍ ለፍላጎቱ ለግላዊ ጥቅሙ እንኳን ዛፍ መቁረጥ አይችልም። ያረጁ ዛፎች እንኳን ለመቁረጥ በአካባቢ ያሉ አባቶች አሉ ለዚህ ፍቃድ የሚሰጡና በፍቃድ ነው የምትወስደው።
Welcome back again. King Salman bin Abdulaziz and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia have sent congratulatory messages to Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed for winning the 6th general election. In his message, King Salman extended his congratulations to Prime Minister Abiy, wishing him all the success and more progress and prosperity for his country and fellow citizens. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman sent a similar message of congratulations to the Premier. The ruling Prosperity Party, which is chaired by Dr. Abiy Ahmed, won the country's elections, which were held on June 21st, 2021, with a landslide victory. Flights heading to Addis Ababa are diverting to nearby airports due to bad weather at and around Bole International Airport, Ethiopian Civil Aviation Authority confirmed in a statement issued today. As safety is the top priority of Ethiopian, flights to Addis Ababa are now landing at alternative airports and will be back to their original destination when the weather improves, the statement added. The group has apologized to its customers for the inconveniences caused beyond their control. In flight-related issue, the Ethiopian Civil Aviation Authority has issued a statement indicating entities violating the NOTAM will assume full responsibility for any related actions, the statement indicates. The American-Ethiopian Public Affairs Committee reaches out to a U.S. Congresswoman who recently announced that the Congress is voting on a resolution about Ethiopia next week. The representative of the committee told the Congresswoman not to back any resolution that could deteriorate the long-standing relationship between Ethiopia and the United States. Habtam Washagwe has more.
The question of security is utmost in our minds as well.
It is to be recalled that U.S. Congresswoman Karen Bass speaks about a likely sanction on Ethiopia while discussing Africa's matters with Chair of the African Union Felix Tshisekedi and other responsible bodies. She also announces that the U.S. Congress will vote on a resolution about the situation in Ethiopia. Following her announcement, the American-Ethiopian Public Affairs Committee reached her out to remind her of the real situation in Ethiopia. Representatives of the committee told Karen Bass not to back any resolutions that would be counterproductive.
How is it possible for this Congress to be so disconnected and out of touch with us, the American citizens of Ethiopian descent? We're a huge voting bloc in critical swing states like Georgia, Virginia, and Colorado, where a couple of thousand votes can flip the Senate. You yourself, along with Ambassador Linda, sat with us on a Zoom call back in October to rally for Biden-Harris. You saw what we did. Ethiopians saw the Democratic Party as a friend and an ally. We mobilized our community in the hundreds of thousands from coast to coast. But as things are turning out, you're losing us. To be quite frank, we are dismayed and disappointed by the inequities in terms of the one-sided way this Congress is handling the situation in Ethiopia.
The representative reminded the Congresswoman that backing the TPLF is considered as going against democracy.
We have in Ethiopia the TPLF, an out-tyrant regime turned rebel with a long history of totalitarianism and well-documented atrocities, with child soldiers being painted as noble rebels immune from condemnation, while Ethiopia, a state under assault, is being demonized with inflammatory statements and punitive resolutions that normally are reserved for enemy states. What is the outcome you're looking for? Is your desire humanitarianism? If so, we're on the same page. But how can you achieve your humanitarian goal when you're not even willing to condemn the root cause and the main actors behind the humanitarian crisis with the same level of intensity and consistency you apply to Ethiopia? As we speak, TPLF is on a rampage, unleashing atrocities in every town and village they set foot on, killing Tigrayans accused of supporting the government, massacring Eritrean refugees, blocking roads, holding university students hostage for ransom, and using aid to force families into giving up their children for war. All the hallmarks of a terrorist group.
The committee, through its representative, underlined that the West should refrain from meddling into Ethiopia's internal affairs, not to ruin the long-standing relations between the two nations.
The TPLF terrorist group propagandists and their accomplices have continued twisting words spoken by government to enhance their usual fake news and agenda. The Ethiopian Current Issue fact-checked indicated TPLF propagandists and their accomplices continue to twist words spoken by the federal and regional leadership to fit their fake news and agenda they have been crafting for several months. Considering the House of People's Representatives have declared TPLF a terrorist organization, all statements by federal and regional governments refer to the criminal enterprise that is TPLF and not the people of Tigray that comprise the Ethiopian social fabric, it stated.
I'm beginning here at the Martyrs Monument just behind me. The monument was built to commemorate the Algerians killed in the War of Independence against the French between 1954 and 1962. Algiers is on the coast of the Mediterranean, right in the north of the country. There's some nice water fountains and pleasant trees and greenery all around the city centre. Assalamu alaikum.
Tunisia's president says he has dismissed Prime Minister Hichem Mechichi and suspended parliament in a move the head of parliament says is unconstitutional. It follows nationwide protest of the handling of the coronavirus pandemic in a struggling economy. Kasahun Chane has the detail on this.
Tunisia's president says he's dismissed Prime Minister Hichem.
Celebrations on the streets of Tunisia's capital 20 hours after the president dismissed the prime minister and suspended parliament for 30 days. President Kass's supporters made their way through the streets welcoming the political change.
It's the first time in my life I've heard the head of a state make a right decision. We've taken our country back. This is the first time we are out on the streets to celebrate.
Earlier, thousands protested in several cities about government failures and crippling coronavirus rates. Across shorter slogans against the ruling party and Prime Minister Hichi Michichi calling for the dissolution of parliament and chanting down with the regime. Police blocked all streets leading to the city's main thoroughfare using tear gas to break up the crowds. Soon after, the president called an emergency meeting saying the measures we needed to save the country.
We have come down today to resist this regime. They take our money and curse us. They have not done anything to the people always fighting. It is enough. How can 9 ministers rule an entire country? We have starved and the people are lost.
The critics, including a Speaker of Parliament, have called the President's actions a coup.